Thank you so much, Emily. Our last session is really our grand finale. I'm really excited to have our speakers today. So we have another panel session of really special panelists that are patients and caregivers. So this is our patient and care partner panel. And in this session, we're going to hear from our patients, their care partners, on how they've navigated their journey with brain mets. So really sort of pulling together all the conversations that we've had the past few hours and translating that to real life scenarios and real life experiences that these patients have had. So I'm delighted to present our panelists. Our first panelist is Sheryl Sanders, who is a brain metastases patient with metastatic melanoma. We also have Julia Hughes, who is a breast cancer patient with brain metastases. We also have Dr. Alexis Williams and her husband, Ryan Miller. She's a patient with metastatic breast cancer and brain mets. And Ryan is her care partner. So please welcome our panelists that we are so lucky to have joining us today. So we're going to first kind of start. I have a few questions for you, and then we're going to also bring in questions from the panelists, or excuse me, from the audience today. So I really want to start just off the heels of all of these talks that we've had about, integrating your care team, clinical trials, palliative care. I want to start with questions based on those. So for starters, I want to ask you three, how did your care team change when you were diagnosed with brain mets? And I didn't, Alexis, go ahead. Yes.
When I started diagnosed with brain mets, I had never seen a neuro-oncologist. So that was kind of added on as another person I had to go see. Fortunately, they were very nice and it worked. And another radiologist, because I'd moved to a new location, and it was a lot more coordinating care. And since I decided to stay at the same institution for all of this, that made it a lot easier because they had their tumor board and things like that. I'm sure other people have other experiences, but that helped me a lot.
Sheryl or Julia?
Well, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
I started out with metastatic melanoma that traveled pretty much everywhere. And I started out with an oncologist for the melanoma who sent me to a brain oncologist who suggested that I have stereotactic radiology, which I did. And I had cancer in so many varied places. And I was fortunate enough to be at Sloan Kettering, Memorial Sloan Kettering, that has many specialists in many different areas of oncology and cancer. So that's really how I branched out into having someone who would take care of the brain metastases.
And for me, I was on active therapy, IV chemo at the time when my diagnosis changed. So it simply was, they added on rather swiftly an neuro-oncologist. So within 5 days, he was operating on me. So my team moved rather quickly to include a professional with the brain stuff. So it was just a whirlwind, really. And that's how it's remained, a whirlwind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Alexis.
If you can get all the care at the same place, sometimes you can't, but if you can, that does help a lot.
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to navigate all the doctors that you have to see.
Yeah, and it sounds like, I mean, that sort of segues into my next question. It sounds like having that coordinated care team at one center was a priority, it sounds like, to all three of you. What other things were really important to you in your care?
At the time of my diagnosis, it was such a shock. I was like a deer in headlights. So basically speaking, I had to select people who I felt I could speak with, who understood me, the fear I had. And what I basically did is I I took care of my end of life situation. I was diagnosed, I'm 73 now. I was diagnosed with metastatic probably about 8 years ago. And at that time, I had 2 adult children, and I didn't want them daughters, and I didn't want them to have to deal with any of this. Melanoma is something that until Keytruda came along was a death sentence. So that's how I saw it. Luckily, Keytruda worked for me, and I was on it for 8 years. But I thought that my life was ending. I really was fearful of that. And I decided I would put one foot in front of the other and live the best I could as long as I could.
That's pretty much me too. I knew once I had brain mets, the end was going to come at some time. I didn't know when, so I decided that I wanted to live life as long as I could, and quality, not quantity, but quality. And I've been lucky. I've responded to pretty much everything, and I've had a great support here who helps me do that. I was overwhelmed too. I didn't have surgery, but I had a whole brain radiation. It killed some of my hair. It's not coming back, but you know, hats are good. Yeah.
I think also if you have someone at your side to support you, that's a very, very positive thing. And it helps you make decisions. It could take you to different appointments, and it makes it a lot easier to go through.
Yeah, that did help a lot.
I think my situation was a little different in the sense that I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer over 8 years ago. So I did get that shock and awe moment at diagnosis where they said, get your affairs in order. It's looking like 6 months to live. Take your final trips. So sorry. Don't know why this was so aggressive and it advanced so quickly. I went from stage 2 to stage 4 very quickly. And so I thought I was in that shock and awe already. So when I'm moving along with all of these IV chemos and everything, when it shifted further, I was thinking, well, wait, what? I was on chemo number 52, 53, 54 maybe. It was almost Christmas. And I complained of side effects and all those things. So I thought I was already ready for that whole end. And I thought I was doing my best with quality of life. So then to get you have a brain tumor, that's why the headaches are there. It was the Monday before a Wednesday Christmas that I was having my surgery. I didn't have a lot of time. It's sort of surreal when I reflect on those moments. I was concerned about getting my Christmas cards out and what we were going to do for Christmas. And I'm messing up Christmas. My boys were, it's just barely 20. And I thought, I don't have all the things wrapped. We have things to do. And so it was just a whirlwind. So I found myself as a mom and a wife worried about Christmas stockings and Christmas dinner and ruining Christmas for everyone. So it's funny how you just go off in a direction. Since then, obviously, the reality of this is serious, and humor gets me through a lot. Planning gets me through a lot. I do try to make light of the situation because I don't know what else to do. I would show off all my staples to those that wanted to see it, and the cool new haircut I had because the whole back was shaved. I thought, I'm a rebel now, and I'd wear ponytails with the shaved head, because I had this hair, but not this hair. And so I did make light of it, but it is a very serious matter. And I'm a regular every 3-month MRI person. And you just do it. You just do it.
Yeah,
you do
what you have to do to get through. And I have every 3 months, I have my MRIs, my CAT scans. an MRI of the pancreas now. They're always finding a little blip. And I sort of, it's not even like I think about it. Unless they tell me it's something to think about, I won't spend time thinking about it because I feel my life is too important.
No, and I so appreciate those insights. I mean, I think taking even through the journey, the emotional journey and the shock of getting that news, and then how you cope with it in the short, medium, and long term are different. Sheryl, you raised a really, important point on that, having that someone by your side, that care partner, whomever that is. And I really want to speak for a moment on impact, right? Impact to that relationship, impact to your relationship with, Julia mentioned your boys, your kids, and how that changes. So maybe, and there's probably a whole panel of questions I can ask on this. So I'm going to try to do it in a sort of organized fashion by starting with how did your relationship change with your partner, for starters?
Would you like me to go first?
Anyone? Yeah, Julie, that's great. That would be great.
Well, it's interesting because we did have a conversation. Well, we regularly have these conversations because one, I go through mental counseling, I have a psychologist myself. So then I do share things with him because I want to help him cope. And I realize that I'm the patient, but he's the one witnessing it and going through it with me. And like he said the other day, is with so much talk of cancer and brain, body, everything, even skin, or, all these potential things. He said, I'm fearful with every bump and bruise or headache I get. Is it cancer? So I realized that the emotional turmoil on him is also very real, and potentially losing me, or when he witnesses me just frustrated with side effects or the treatments, or all the things that go with it, or me questioning life or questioning the path, or, oh gosh, I wish you would have married somebody who wasn't sick or wasn't, you have all these things. So and then those fights result from it, like, well, at least you can do this and at least you can do that, and I have to step back and think, well, no, there's been some changes that have evolved in our marriage that were beyond the control of both of us. So collectively, we look at our relationship, we discuss what we can do to bring ourselves closer, hand it up to God to help us to get through these things. And we really try to be deliberate and do the little things, the dates, and small dates on the patio, dates outside, sometimes it involves going somewhere, sometimes I don't have the energy to do all that. So we do the park or something like that, just to laugh and be silly and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Well, my thing was, my partner, he's very, very nurturing and very caring, and I'm a very independent type A type of personality. I think if you were set us side by side, he'd be the one that was more emotional than me. And he would always try to make me feel better. And I didn't want to hear that. I mean, I had cancer all over my body, plus the brain. And he would say to me, don't worry, honey, it'll be okay. And I would get crazy. Okay, how can you tell me it would be okay? I'm, and he would never mean it. He would never, and he apologized profusely. But I became active in cancer care, and I would do like webinars with them, and I would speak for them. And he would come with me and speak as well. And I think that was very helpful to the both of us. And I think him coming to the therapist I went to and realizing the things that like set me off, because I was so raw, and I never wanted to hurt him. I love him, but you sort of like can nip at each other, and it's just part of the process. It's the way it is. But now it's fine. It's been a long time. I'm I've been on meds and everything for a long time, and we travel, we do, but it takes its toll.
Yeah. And that sounds very similar to me. We've had little arguments, we work it out, you find something new, you work that out, and you just keep on going in that circle until you figure things out.
Yeah, and I think that you guys kind of said it in different ways, but it sounds like all three of you had to adjust to essentially a new normal and to
Yeah.
reestablish that balance within each of your relationships. And so
Mhm.
probably asking how you managed to achieve that is might take the rest of the time, but I'm curious if you have any comments on that, as well as impact to, well, a few,
have-
and then you guys can decide impact to your other relationships. And Brian, I don't want to put you on the spot, but impact from your perspective as well, if you have any thoughts.
I have this urgency to live. I've always loved to travel, and there was a period of time where I couldn't. And I also can't take certain vaccinations to go certain places that I want to go. I'm not allowed to take live vaccines because of the nature of my illness. But I plan trips. I could plan 2 or 3 trips a year because I don't know when my time is up. And as long as I'm feeling good, I want to get it in. He doesn't feel that. So sometimes we clash in that respect, but we've come to a pretty happy medium where we worked it out. I think you have to have a good relationship to begin with, and then you have to be very clear in what your feelings are and have good communication, because a weak relationship can probably be torn apart very easily.
Yes.
I agree that you need a strong relationship in whatever people you are dealing with, whether it's your children or your parents or your spouse or significant other. But I also think that those relationships can possibly grow during this time because of the urgency and the very realness of this. But sometimes some people can't handle it, and they too will adjust in their own way, perhaps avoiding you or removing themselves from their circle of being with you, because it's awfully real when you have the guess what, I have cancer, to guess what, it's terminal cancer, and guess what, I'm retiring from my job cancer, and guess what, it's a brain tumor cancer. They're just like, wait a minute, and then I had hip surgery on both legs. They're like, what the heck? It's a lot of very real stuff to deal with. When it came to my kids, I just sat them down and I told them what was happening. They were older. When I was initially diagnosed, though, they were in high school, and the fears were real for me. So I did assume it was real for them. But at the same time, I let them lead how it was impacting them. And there were very real situations that they were dealing with school and college. And do I go away to college, Mom? What do I do? Should I stay right here? Should I go to college? Should I? And that's a lot. That's a lot for a child to have to worry. Is my mom going to die if I go to college? Or am I selfish if I make a choice, if I leave? Or what do I do? And so a lot of those very real situations,
One thing that I used to be able to tell patients and their families is sometimes you don't know, but you look and you ask yourself, in 5 years, what will I regret? And then that gives you a little more perspective on stuff.
Absolutely.
That's very interesting. I appreciate that comment very much.
Good. Yeah. That
Just
keeps me in balance. Go ahead.
yeah. No, go ahead. Anything else that you or Ryan wanted to add to that, or I'll move on to the next question. I have so many. I'm really enjoying hearing all your feedback here. Were any of you guys ever on a clinical trial at any point?
Yes.
I was not.
Do you want to walk us through that journey, Alexis?
Actually, it was really straightforward for me. So I've been on several clinical trials. The main one I think of is that I had when I developed my brain mets, and it wasn't a single mets. I didn't have surgery. I had radiation, and my brain looked like Swiss cheese, but where the holes were in the cheese, that was cancer. So I was in a study that placed you on Tykerb during radiation to see if that helped or not. And it actually went really smoothly because they were able to do it at the hospital where I was at, and they still track me. Like, I got a call a couple of years ago saying, "Can we see I moved from Milwaukee to Northwestern. Can we have access to your MRI results? We're still monitoring to see if this helped or not." And once I was in the trial, they had the trial leaders, and they would come and talk to you and counsel you as that and to side effects, and that you may or may not get the medication. Fortunately, I did, and I was glad. I think it helped me. But they're very supportive. They usually give you their office phone number so you can ask them questions. And in a well-run trial, it's pretty easy. The doctors mainly need to know that you're up for participating in a trial. That's my experience.
No, that's exactly right. In terms of doctors just want to know whether you're up for it. I think Dr. Nagpal alluded to this in her talk, mentioned this as well. You know, our goal is just to support you whether or not you do the study, and we as clinical trialists would never hold it against or towards a patient if they decide to do it. We're just here to offer the menu.
Yeah, that's what it always felt like.
Yeah, good. I'm so glad to hear that. So, you know, I'm going to move on to a topic that I get asked by my patients a lot. And that's communication to friends, family, other loved ones about the details of your care, your diagnosis. And it's different, I know, at different times, but any pointers or advice that you would share with the audience on how you would do that, Alexis?
Sometimes I share with humor, but sometimes I say, "I have this cancer. If you don't want to talk about it, that's okay." I post periodically on caringbridge.org. That way I can write stuff in there, and if they want to read about it, they can read about it, and it's a free website, and that you just log into your account. They can read everything, and then if they have questions, they contact you. But that way, because a lot of people are reluctant to ask for details, so you can give them details there, and if they want information, they usually feel more comfortable asking you. So it's a really nice resource.
Initially, I told very few people. I told my family, not my extended family, not cousins or aunts or anything like that, my immediate family and a few good friends. And I felt that the situation is extreme. It's not like having a cold or like having even a heart attack. I mean, it's an extreme situation. And I felt that if I told too many people, when they looked at me, they would see cancer written across my forehead. And I didn't want to be identified that way. That's not who I am. I'm someone who's not well, who has cancer, but I can't always talk about that. I want to talk about other things. When people ask me how I feel now, I say, fine. Nothing, I'm fine, stable, nothing's changed. So I have never been told I'm in remission. I've never been told I'm free of disease. I've just told that I'm stable. So I'm stable. What does stable mean? I have no idea, but I'm stable. Maybe not mentally stable, but cancer stable.
Yeah. That's pretty much, I am very selective who I tell. And if I tell, I want to tell them in person. And I've shared it with my close friends. And Maureen knew before we were married. In fact, I asked him like 4 times, "Are you sure you want to marry me with this cancer?" He finally got mad at me, threw something down and said, "Yes," which is not usual for him.
That's awesome. I have been an open book from the beginning. So I was diagnosed while I was a school teacher teaching 4th grade. And like I said, it was very aggressive, went from stage 2 to stage 4 within months. So it was quite abrupt, and it affected my work, and it took me out of the classroom, which was devastating, and both to my students, my own children, my family, and then especially with the whole, they gave me 6 months that June, so it was very real, and I wanted friends and coworkers to know, not just for oh, woe is me, I can't do the thing that I love doing, but to be aware and go get checked. I became an advocate of sorts to my friends and family who neglected themselves, especially fellow moms who had shared that they were focused on their kids for so many years and neglected even basic mammogram or pap smears or any of those things. So I was getting messages out of the blue from people that said, thank you so much. Guess what? I got checked. Guess what? You know, and so it brought me some happiness knowing that although my situation wasn't improving, that I hoped that it was helping others do some of their self-care things that they were neglecting. And then I was very open when my, oh, chemo number 5, chemo number 7, I posted I took selfies with my husband, every single IV chemo. I brought a blanket and did, funny socks and funny things. And, even my doctors and nurses said, oh my goodness, you again with your blanket and your socks and I kept sharing the realities, but then the life part of it too. So it is kind of a funny mix. You do get a combination of, wait, but you look great. That doesn't make sense. Or I'll get a new blood draw person and they'll say, wait, your report says, but you're so, funny. You're so happy. You're so smiley. And I'm like, sorry, I don't know what to say. I want to look like I'm living life. It doesn't change what's going on inside me, but physically, my heart, I'm working on my heart, but it doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of junk going on. It's just, I want to be positive and make a positive impact. And
you don't want to be seen as someone sick. You want to be seen as someone who lives life.
Right.
Yes,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out. Right on.
I was never given any time. I always asked for statistics. And unfortunately, I was the guinea pig because I had a lesion on my shoulder. 6.5 years later, I was diagnosed with stage 4 all over. And the way I found it was I had a lesion on my chest that was filled with blue liquid. And I had to go, it was just the whole thing. But Keytruda had just been FDA approved when I was sick. So I thank God for that. I give grace to all of that because Keytruda was FDA approved. I was able to go on Medicare, which helped me financially. And there were a lot of things that were in my court, but nobody had any knowledge about. People were on Keytruda for 1.5 years. I was on it for 6.5 years. So I just went off because I developed a side effect. But there was a part of me that wanted to hear statistics, wanted to know the future. I'm probably better off in retrospect that I didn't, but I can't imagine how hard it must have been to hear that you have 6 months. It must have been absolutely devastating. I can't even begin to understand that.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping.
You're a beautiful woman, you're smiling. You're a beautiful woman and you're smiling. And I give you a lot of credit.
Thank you, Sheryl. Thank you. I do hope they've taken that out of their vocabulary and as far as giving numbers. And due to my faith, I never put a lot of faith in the doctor's numbers, because who can say how you're going to respond to treatment or a new procedure and things. And so obviously I trust my doctor, and I don't know that he would have handled it the same way, and especially in light I'm still here. But it did give kind of some things, some credence. And I think the fact that it moved so quickly, it definitely lit some sort of a fire. But as you said, Sheryl, I just looking at my children thinking, wait, they haven't even graduated high school yet. What's going to happen? You know, so that was my big concern, even during treatment, is with the severe side effects, I'm going to miss things, but I'm in treatment. Okay, can I postpone treatment so I could? But then if I postpone treatment, then what happens? You know, so there were a lot of tears and real life things that were happening, and that was especially tough, is just looking at their faces and not knowing that, you know, how I was going to react, or when I was sick and too sick to fake it. You know, they say fake it till you make it, but when you can't fake it, it's really, really challenging. So
Just with regards, this is a question from the audience for all three of you. With regards to that initial diagnosis of brain metastases, did you have symptoms? How were they discovered for each of you?
I had a severe headache, and I was already metastatic, and I was HER2 new, which is known to travel to the brain. So the oncologist pretty much told me I wouldn't be surprised if it does travel to the brain. And one day I had just severe headache. I knew it was metastases. My husband drove me up to Milwaukee, because that's where my insurance still was, in a snowstorm, like a severe snowstorm, to get my MRI and to come back the next day and to have it confirmed. So it was a horrible headache. Like I couldn't function type of headache.
I took a PET scan and they saw everything light up. So that's how I found out.
And you didn't have symptoms, Sheryl, at that time?
No.
No brain-related symptoms? Okay.
No.
Okay. And Julia, what about you?
well, I being that I was on IV chemo at the time, headaches were a side effect, and you know, you have a lot of side effects. So it was one of many side effects that I made a point of complaining about. I would wake up at the night and I have a pretty good tolerance of pain, but I was consistently saying that this was a 10 plus, and my husband would, try to massage my head, literally my head, not just my neck area. So I was going in for a few months saying that, the headaches are getting crazy. But they just initially just dismissed it as a side effect. I was on, like I said, this chemo number, say 53, 54. I was breaking records. So not records I was aiming for, but there's other categories I would have preferred. But so it was one of those things. And then unusually I had a bladder infection of all things, and which was unusual for me. So the nurse at the outpatient treatment center suggested that I go to a nurse friend of hers that was closer by at a different facility. And so I was complaining about that. And in addition, that day, my husband had said, "Oh, your balance is off." So they immediately, between the new people who were assisting me and hearing what my complaints were, they decided to send me for an MRI. And bam, within, that my oncologist called me the very next morning with the results and said, "Well, you have a brain tumor." And the next day I was in seeing neuro-oncology, and that was a Friday. And by Monday I was wheeled in for surgery. And it was so bad. Imagine my shock and awe. I had never heard about the cancer moving. I was on active chemo. So I was shocked, to say the least. And like I said, my reaction was, oh my gosh, I have so much stuff to do for Christmas. So it was, and then later I was like, but I complained about headaches for months, but can't change the past. So here I am.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask this one last question for each of you, and I'm giving a little bit of time for you guys to answer it each, because I think it's an important one. There's audience members here today, and then others that will watch this later. And I'd love to go one by one and have each of you give a piece of advice, or any pieces of advice that you would want to make sure that the audience heard. So whether that's another patient with brain mets, care partner, or whomever. So who would like to start? Great.
I would say seek emotional support from a therapist, a psychiatrist, someone that can help you adjust to your new normal, because you're struck with something that is very difficult to deal with. And there will be changes, and people will have to alter certain things around you. And I think seeking help, I was very proactive in that way. When I was at Sloan, I asked for a social worker related to the cancer community. I didn't want to go to someone who did not know about the cancer community. Then I sought someone out with cancer care. Then I started to, if they asked me, like Vince from APTA asked me if I would speak, I do those things because it helps me give back the time that I have. It makes me feel good. So basically, I would say to someone, seek a support group, seek someone out that you could speak to honestly and help you through this whole process, because it is crazy. And embrace life. Embrace life.
I would say definitely develop a support network. And if you're going to live life, try to do it happily, because like smiling and having a joke really can just make the whole day go better. And you have to think of that, can I get through today? Not always think about tomorrow. And then sometimes you think, what about in 5 years? Where do I want to be? And that kind of helps you hold on to the hope and the what ifs. This may happen, this may not happen, but I can enjoy today. That's how I look at it. But okay.
Awesome. It's all great.
I love that. Yeah.
I agree with both Sheryl and Alexis. I looked into mental health way long into my journey. So I would have liked to have had that part of my regular care much sooner. I think that has been a great help. And I actually, I've been greatly surprised by all the things that it helps me work through, not just the cancer part, but just the life part, the anxiety, or I wish I had more time to do things. So that kind of led into the second part, where I try to give back, because if I can be that support that perhaps I didn't have, or share the knowledge that I didn't have, in cases even like today, or with sharing other organizations, whether it's on my social media or going to a particular event and being the face or the voice for those who aren't there, or for being the voice for the people that are there, and answering those questions, or giving light to certain situations, to be an advocate, because I didn't actually have all the answers or the information presented to me. So I didn't know what to ask. They say, well, why didn't you ask us that question? But if you don't know anything about it, I didn't know breast cancer spreads through other parts of the body. I didn't know that. I did all the mammograms. I didn't know it could spread to other parts of the body. I didn't know that you could be on active chemo and it could go into your brain. I didn't know that. And so even my friends or my family are shocked that these things happen. So when I'm sharing with other people, there's a little bit of fear because naturally they didn't know that would happen. But then to hear it, they go, thank you. I never even considered that. I didn't know you could have breast cancer in your brain or breast cancer in your back, or why did you have to have hip surgery in your 50s, you know, or things like that. It helps other people. And I am of the idea that even if it doesn't help me or my situation, if it could help other people, the people that come after me, then that is time well spent. And so, and like what was said, is that it's kind of a give back. It gives you your time back. You may not be able to continue with the career that you would have chosen, or even the day-to-day activities that were on your list when you were little. The quality of life does change. At an earlier talk, I can't remember the doctor, but it wasn't about the quantity of life you have, but the quality of life. And it does change as you get older. It also changes when your cards change. So you start looking at what is the most important thing. And so that's where I'm at in my journey, is embracing what are the most important things I can do with my time.
One quick thing is some of the studies I took part in were not medicine based. They were based on, does this help you or does this not? And I highly recommend those because they can be really nice. You get a group of people who want to participate and support each other.
That's wonderful. I lied. I have one last question. It's from the audience, and maybe we can give some quick answers to this. It's a really great question on scanxiety, you know, something that we all know is very, very prevalent and very real. Do you have any advice to our audience on how to manage scanxiety?
I've had so many scans that you get used to it. It's unbelievable. But every time I go, I just find that I don't think about it. I read the report, and what'll be will be. Did you hear me? Because it went blank. And I have scans every 3 months. So, and a lot of them. And when they find something and they rescan me, so be it. You know, I mean, I've taken this journey for years already. So it's going to end sometime.
That's
I don't
how
worry
feel
until
too.
I have to.
And I make myself read the scans to keep myself in perspective. But then after that, I think, okay, my doctors have seen this. They have control. I know what's going on, but I can trust them and I can talk about with them if I want to. And then I just let it go. I don't want to spend half my morning on the computer looking up things. That just makes me more anxious. So if I have questions, I try to, you know, text or email my doctors, not look for information that may be false on the internet.
Well, I try to deal with scan anxiety, but I'm terrible at it. 8.5 years in, I have scan anxiety every single time, from echocardiograms, MRIs, CT scans, like blood tests. I'm like, oh, I hope they don't find anything. I wonder if my sugar is too low or too high, or my liver is too low or too high, or so I guess I would say go easy on yourself. Be present. Really, worrying does nothing. The anxiety does nothing for you. Do the things that help you feel better to try to tone it back a little. But I think that no matter what, I'm anxious about the experience, and I don't have any phobias with the actual process. They handle me with care, and we joke, they're fast, and I could do MRIs and fall asleep in them. So you'd think I I got this, but I'm anxious. Even my husband says every time you get nervous or anxious, or I go, I know, I try. I read books, I listen to music. I live by the ocean, so I go to the ocean. That's very calming. I light my candles. I drink my fizzy water, and I do all the things, but and pray. I still, in the end, I'm still a little nervous, even the morning of. I go and, I wake up, oh, I don't want to go. And he says, you say that every time. I know. It's like, I don't know. I go.
I love
And
that.
that's the
It's
thing,
so,
just
it's
put
such
one
an
foot in
on.
front of the other. That's all you can do
Yeah.
sometimes.
But thank you guys so much, all of you, for your transparency, your vulnerability, and just answering so many of these questions that are so important to our patients and their loved ones. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Emily.
Yes, thank you all so much for your willingness to share. That was such an incredible session, and definitely always one of my favorites, just to hear your experience. And I know our audience members really valued hearing from each of you. This now concludes the ABTA's Navigating Your Brain Metastases Care Patient and Family meeting. As a reminder, today's meeting has been recorded. So sorry, I got muted. This now concludes our meeting. As a reminder, today's meeting has been recorded and will be sent out later this week, along with some helpful resources. We hope each of you gained some new insight and information from our meeting today. Before we go, we would love if you could help us to understand if you have learned something new today by responding to this very last poll. I'm going to launch it now. Please rate your overall understanding of brain metastases. So if you were a part of our program at the start of the day, we asked this question, and our hope is that, by the end of the program, that your understanding has at least improved a little bit. All right, I see some responses still trickling in. I'm going to end it in 3, 2, 1. All right, this is great to see. When we first started, we had quite a few under the little, and so it's great to see that it has improved to either general or great. We invite each of you to stay connected with ABTA through our programs, resources, and services. Visit us at abta.org or sign up for our monthly newsletter, Mind Matters, or connect with ABTA through any of our social media channels. We also encourage each of you to fill out our survey to provide feedback on how these meetings are going. You can scan the QR code as you see here on the screen, and it's also sent via email to post-event to each of you. I would like to thank our chair, Dr. Kumthekar, for all of her leadership in the development of this program. And at this time, I would like to welcome her back just to say a few brief closing remarks.
Thank you so much. I'll keep it short. I just really want to say thank you to everybody who volunteered to speak today, the patient panel, the physicians who volunteered their Saturday and took time to be here. And I want to thank all the patients and their loved ones, their care partners, for joining. I'm hoping that we achieve part of our goal, which is just helping you navigate your care in brain metastases. And we're here for you for whatever questions you might have and any help you might need in the future. So thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you. In addition, I'd like to add thank you to all of our speakers. Additionally, I would like to thank our sponsors, our series sponsor, Genentech and Novocure, and our silver sponsor, GT Medical Technologies, for the support of this meeting. Additionally, thank you to ABTA's Metastatic Brain Tumor Collaborative Partners. Without the time and effort from each of these individuals and organizations, we would not be able to bring you this quality educational programming that has brought together the metastatic community. And most importantly, I thank each and every one of you for joining us online today and being a part of this community. We hope you have found our meeting to be full of new information, resources, and support. If you're looking for more content like this, please check out some of our free upcoming events, such as our webinar on what to know when you're newly diagnosed with glioblastoma, taking place July 27th, and our national conference commemorating ABTA's 50th anniversary, taking place on September 8th and 9th. That will take place here in Chicago and also online. Registration is free and open. Thank you again for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.